Hello and welcome to another episode of Echoes of the Past. I'm your host today, Zachary Graulich. I'm the Assistant Director of Education here at hmTv, and I have the absolute privilege of sitting down today with Consolee Nishimwe. Consolee is a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. So this is a really special conversation, and I can't thank you enough for being here today, Consolee.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a
Absolutely.
pleasure.
So I would love to start by talking about your life before the genocide, because you were just a young girl when all of this happened, but you still have extremely powerful and happy memories of your childhood. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I'm very fortunate that I have memories of growing up before 1994. So because the genocide started when I was 14 years old, so I had to live life before then, with my parents. And I was very fortunate. I had a beautiful family. My parents were teachers, and I was able to, to have siblings. The oldest, I was the oldest in my family. My sister was the second, 11 years old. And my two younger brothers were age 9, 7 years old, and 16 months old. So I would say that my family was beautiful. They made sure that we felt loved at home. I remember, going to school with my parents. I remember, going to my grandparents' home, my cousins' home during vacation holidays. Just having normal things in a village, in a small town, but mostly family time. So that's what I remember in friends and having people around and just enjoying small things, going to church, doing things like that and simple things that really made life feel, normal. And I have those great memories. My parents were loving family and they were very much affectionate. So we felt that in our household. So yeah. I really enjoy that. Yeah.
And what kind of values or morals did your parents instill in you? What kind of traits do you think you have today that came from them?
One of the things that I really, really cherish the most is the love. My parents loved each other. First, they loved each other among themselves, and they made sure that they taught us to love people. And one of the things that I remember, my parents made sure that I learned how to really be respectful, have good manners, be respectful to people, and really appreciate everybody around me. So they made sure that we really learn how to appreciate life and appreciate small things in life and have joy in life. So even having time together to smile, to laugh, and just be happy. And I really, really appreciate those times those memories I've had with my parents together. And they really made me who I am today. So just the most important thing, love and have faith in our home and pray. And pray for everybody, pray for each other, and really just to have, make sure that you care for one another. So for me, those are the most important things that I really learned in my family, that I feel like they really helped me in my life as who I am today. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who might not be too familiar with the genocide or the lead up to the genocide, or really just anything having to do with Rwanda as a whole, I think it's important for us to mention that when it comes to Rwanda, at least at the time, there were a number of ethnic groups that lived within the country. You had the Hutus, which were the majority of the country, the Tutsi, which was your family, as well as the Twa, a very small minority ethnic group in the country. And so could you talk a little bit about what it was like to live in the country at that time as a Tutsi?
It was not easy. As I was mentioning earlier, growing up in my family, they really protected me and they made sure that I felt loved. And despite the fact that, being a Tutsi was not easy. So of course the Tutsis were persecuted even way before I was born. And many of them lived in exile because of persecution and killings and that happened before. But those who remained in Rwanda, including my family, so they had to experience that. So I was born in a time already that it was not easy. So I really, every Tutsi, whatever you were in the country, there are so many things you were not allowed to do. Some, higher education. So many things really that Tutsis were not allowed to do at that time. So, and they were discriminated against, and in schools and at work, and sometimes for me, when I was as a child, of course, there were times I couldn't understand what I was going through, but at the same time, when I was starting to grow up, so of course, especially in junior high school, that's when I realized that life was not easy being a Tutsi because of being bullied at school, which is something that happened often to so many Tutsis in school. So, and I really felt like at that time, of course, I was still young, not understanding the magnitude of hatred against the Tutsi, but I felt it. I lived it at that time. Of course, I never imagined that it would lead to a genocide where they wanted to exterminate the minority Tutsis. But throughout the time I've heard Tutsis being, some of them imprisoned, others being killed. So, and there were many instances when I was younger, they used to really, they would come to our home. I remember one time that, because they used to come to homes and searching Tutsis' homes, just to find ways to, to humiliate you. I remember when my dad was, felt sad, and, when they came to our home searching, and they would just finding ways to make you feel like less of yourself. So, when it led to a genocide, that's when, by the time, of course, the RTLM, when it was created, the propaganda on the radio, hearing how Tutsis, are being called cockroaches and snakes, all this kind of language, dehumanizing language used at that time, that's when I realized, wow, this is really bad. That was in 90s leading to a genocide. So, and it was very scary, but I never imagined it would lead to wanting to exterminate the Tutsis in the country. So,
I think it's important to emphasize something that you spoke about, which is that, growing up, you didn't really think that it would ever get to that point. And that's something that we try very hard to stress to students that we either work with here at the museum or when we go out and do programs with students at schools, is the idea that genocide doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere one day. It's a step-by-step gradual process, and it starts with words, which of course then leads to words of discrimination, acts of discrimination, dehumanization, just little things that start to build up and build up and build up, and then eventually maybe something is sparked and a genocide begins, which is exactly what happened on April 6, 1994 in Rwanda. So could you talk a little bit about what that day was like, what happened on that day, and what you remember from that day?
Like everybody else, it depends of where you were in at that time. So after hearing the plane of the former president shut down, so like everybody else, you wonder what will happen next. So, but of course, like you were mentioning earlier, the propaganda was already spread out throughout the country. So many of the people in the country, especially the Hutus who were our neighbors, were taught to hate us simply because we're Tutsis. And all these, language used about the Tutsis and who they are, how they are not supposed to be part of the society, especially RTLM, which is one of the biggest radio, which was used to spread the propaganda. Like everybody listened to that radio. And there are some media also used, like a newspaper, Kangura, which was used at that time to spread the hatred against the Tutsis. So, and already by the time the plane was shut down already throughout the country, because how gradually over the years, hate was being taught, they already had machetes. And they already had prepared. They were already prepared. They had clubs, which was another weapon used in a genocide to kill the Tutsis. So by the time they used as a way of saying, "Oh, now Tutsis killed the president," which was also another way of finding ways to be able to kill Tutsis. Already the propaganda was out there. So immediately I remember on that radio, they started saying Tutsis everywhere must be killed. So, and as you can imagine, all of us were shocked how life it was going to be. So there was no other choice. I remember, at that time, I was young, of course, but at the same time, I could see the fear in my parents' eyes. I could see the fear, like how it felt hearing on the radio that, some Tutsis who were known in Kigali, some who were already on the list of being murdered right away. So some of them were killed right away. So, and I remember that how it was really scary, but of course we didn't have any choice. We had to run and go into hiding. So, and at that time, even if we ran, going to hiding and seeing everything changing on the hills, like running to our, authority, hoping that they could give us, refuge. But at the same time, we hoped that we could get help, but we already, the government was the one really committing the genocide against us. So, and at that time, I never forget that, women and children and all of it living in hills where we lived in the western province of the country in Kibuye, like running on the streets and now we left everything we had and we had to seek refuge to Hutus were kind enough to hit us in your home. You never knew who was going to be kind. But for me, that was the beginning of seeing that life was going to change completely. So
to hear, as you said, to hear with your family huddled around the radio on that day that the plane was shot down, to hear people, your fellow, Rwandan citizens openly saying all Tutsis must die, Tutsis are cockroaches, get them, kill them, wherever you can find them, kill them. I can't imagine what that must have felt like for you. And then to then spend the next 3 months, essentially, on the run, day by day, as you said, going house to house and never knowing if the person who opened the door would be friendly, would kill you themselves, would alert the local townspeople to kill you, or if they would actually take a risk and save you. Because as we know, for those who did do the right thing and saved you and your family, even by having you in their home for a day, a week, a few hours, whatever it may have been, it was a risk. What would have happened had their neighbors, their fellow Hutu neighbors, found out that they were hiding Tutsis, So there's a lot of risks involved. But for you as just a young girl, as you said, you left everything behind in your home, just going place to place, not knowing where to go at times, having to hide in the bushes and fields, just hoping that people nearby who have machetes and are looking for you, just hoping they don't find you. So can you talk a little bit about how you got through those dark times when you didn't know what was going on, when you didn't know what was going to happen next, when you were rightfully so scared for your life? How did you get through?
As I was mentioning earlier, growing up in a home of, love and faith, one of the things that really helped me the most, that was constantly reminded to me, especially by my mom and, the whole who were together in hiding, is to pray. Praying even if you don't know what will happen next. So the next day, because you never knew if you were going to survive or anything will happen, the next day, because you never know what a day will be like. So, and one of the things that helped me the most is to pray. Just keep praying. Whatever happens, if you die, at least, as a Christian, I believe I will go to heaven. So, and that's one of the things that helped me the most during, the time in hiding. So, but there's nothing else really I could have done to keep me strong. So just prayer, just to pray.
And did you feel any sort of responsibility as the oldest child to be strong for your younger siblings and for your parents?
I felt the responsibility, even though I was a child who grew up in a home that really sheltered me. My parents really sheltered all of us. So, and somehow, instantly, I felt like, I had to be, strong for my siblings. I had to be older, even though I was still young in me. But I felt like they needed my comfort. So even though I didn't even know how to comfort them, so I did how I knew how to do it. So, and my mom, of course, the whole time she had to be strong for all of us. I like to say she was a pillar of our strength. So throughout the whole time. So because my dad was murdered, not too long after the genocide started. So throughout the whole time in hiding was me, my mom, and my siblings until my other siblings were killed, and then we remained me and my sister. So and my mom. So it was just throughout the 3 months, I felt like I needed to be strong, but at the same time I was really down many times, because of the things we were going through. But in my own way, probably my spirit somehow helped a little bit, maybe. But I felt like they really also helped me, my siblings also. By the time they were still alive, it really helped me in the way of, even though they were young, I felt like they gave me also, strength in my mom.
And you mentioned that your father was tragically murdered along with some of your siblings. Do you mind speaking about what happened to your father and your siblings and what that was like for you?
As during the genocide, of course, when you went to seek refuge in Hutu's home, you never knew how they were going to be kind, or if they were already in the propaganda of hatred against the Tutsi. And at that time, you had to seek refuge in friends' homes. So, and I remember the time we left in one of the family that really took us in, with all of us together, my dad and my siblings and my mom and my aunt. So by the time we left, of course, that's when I remember in hiding in the bushes when the last time I was, with my dad, I never forget the image of my father where we were sitting in the bushes and scared and hearing, killers surrounding us and wanting to kill us and call us cockroaches, all these names they were calling us. My father was my best friend. To see him in that position where he could not do anything, it's one of the hardest things that really, for me even now, that image that never leaves my mind. So, and my mom kept reminding us, as I was saying earlier, to pray. So, and reminding him to pray. So the time we left those bushes and trying to figure out the places to hide, when the killers decided to follow my father, that's when in our hiding place in the ceiling, the killers mentioned that they murdered my father because they followed my father, at the time because he wanted to, hide in different places we were hiding. So, and it was very tough. This man who was a teacher to the community, loved everybody, showed love to everyone. When I was younger, I would see every child coming to him, and the family really was so happy to always bring their children to my dad. And this person who really cared very much about what he did, what he does as a job as a teacher, and now simply because of who he were, tortured, learning how they tortured him. And it was very hard for me. And, but, during that period, all of us didn't know we were going to survive. So we kept hiding in many places and seeking refuge in many places. But it got to a point where my brothers also, later on, after several weeks we were hiding, and, they decided to kill my brothers were in hiding where we were at that time. And it was tough because my mom was always carrying my younger brother on her back and sometimes on her chest, and we're hungry many times, hiding in the bushes and not knowing what would happen next. Several times killers tried to kill us, but then it got to a point where that day my brothers were taken to our destroyed home because our homes were completely destroyed. and they murdered them. It was very tough. And my younger brother snatched away from my mom. Imagine what a mother, felt like. So it was not easy time, and I tried to describe that in my memoir that day, what it felt like. And my brothers were taken to our destroyed home and murdered them in the most horrible way. And all of us wanted to die, but somehow when you survive, you never know what will happen. So we kept hiding, even though we didn't want to hide any longer. But many horrible things kept happening after my brothers were murdered. So yeah.
So who from your family, aside from you, was able to survive?
It's aside my mom, my sister. I have a few cousins. I have my mom's older sister who survived, and a few family members, but we're not as many of us. But immediate family members were very few, and but I have a few cousins who are immediate, of course, the first cousins. But we lost many people. Like on the side of my dad, all his siblings, himself, and his parents were still alive, my grandparents. All of them were murdered. So we are only few grandchildren on my dad's side who survived. So, and on my mom's side, and at least, she has one sibling, my aunt. So, and others are cousins, first cousins from, on both sides. So, but then I have other few extended family members some of them were in exile, left a long time ago. So at least, they were in exile. So I have that family. So, yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry for all of your losses, Consolee.
Thank you.
But you are an incredibly strong and resilient woman. And I have to imagine that some of that comes from your mother. So do you want to talk for a minute about your mom and what it must have been like for her to survive without half of her children and her husband, and I guess how life has been for her since the genocide? I know that you have a very close relationship with her, so you want to speak about that?
My mom is, I like to call her my Shiro, my hero, my Shiro. So my mom is a good woman and a wonderful person, and she's somebody that I really learned from. So I learned from her. I keep learning from her. So, and my dad was my best friend. I was very, very close to my dad and my mom as well. But then after the genocide, I became more closer to my mom. My mom is my best friend, and to see her, rise up after all she's been through, all we've been through, and she went back to teach and show love. And to me, it's incredible to see this woman who lost children and husband, a big family, and everything was gone. But then she has two daughters who are, traumatized by everything they have gone through. But then she woke up and every day went back to teach, and some of the people have done horrible things to us, but kept reminding us to love despite the pain. Every day she kept reminding us, you have to love. You should never carry hatred within you. So, and to have that person really teach me that, despite the fact that she carried so much pain within herself, and really, I find it really amazing, and I'm so grateful. I don't know who I would have been, if I didn't have her. So, and she was very much welcome to everybody around her. She's still welcoming, to everyone around her. So showing love despite the pain, I really find it very amazing, and really that has taught me how to live with my pain. And she told me that I should carry my pain with grace and learn how to, to live with no hatred, because that is not going to help me live a healthy life. So to me, I am so grateful, and I don't take this for granted to have her in my life, because so many of my friends lost entire families. At least I leaned on her shoulder, and I remember after the genocide, there's a routine I used to have with her every day. Whenever she used to come from work, I would go to her bedroom, so just to have a conversation. And I could see she was so in a lot of pain, but somehow she created that safe space for me, even in the midst of pain, for me to just sit with her. And I could just say anything, whatever I felt with in my mind, or whatever I was talking about to her. Sometimes it could be what we have gone through, but she would just listen to me and create that safe space for me. And I remember those moments really I had with her, whenever I wanted to just show up in her bedroom and just go there and sit and talk. I actually placed a chair in front of her bedroom. So just to sit there and talk. Whenever I felt like I needed to leave, I would just leave. That really, really, when I was older, that's when I realized that how that moment was so special for me, and it helped me in my life, and really helped me to deal with my own trauma in a very healthy way, even though I didn't know, how to, because I don't know how I have dealt with my pain, and, as you know, what I have gone through, during the genocide. So, yeah.
I mean, it takes such a special type of person to come out of something so horrific and be able to give advice to others, whether it be family members, children, loved ones, or strangers, that, you have to love others and don't let hatred define you. And for your mom to be able to come out after losing 3 children and her husband and, cousins and siblings and in-laws and, her home, and to come out with that mentality, it just speaks to how strong and incredible she is. But it also speaks to how incredible and strong and resilient you are, because you could have pushed away that advice. You could have said, I don't agree.
Yeah.
You see what they did to us. I hate them, and I will never get over it. And I don't think anyone could have blamed you if that's how you felt. But the fact that you listened and you took in that advice, and now you spend your time sharing that advice with thousands of students every year, and adults as well. It is so remarkable, and that is why I am in such awe of you and your mom, even though I've never met her. By proxy, I'm in awe of her, and I just cannot thank you enough for the work that you do, for being here today on this podcast, for being vulnerable and opening up and sharing your story with us. So thank you so much, Consolee.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate that for your kind words. And I'm so grateful that I had that person in my life, because I was a young woman who have suffered a lot during the genocide, and also living with the consequences of the things that I've gone through. Probably I never mentioned earlier, which is also rape, as also one of the things that many women and girls have gone through during the genocide. And to have that, living with the consequences of that every day, as living with HIV, as something that reminds me every day of what I've gone through. So it's like I could have thrown away everything my mom, as you mentioned, that, was teaching me. So, but I'm grateful that, I was able to receive that. But for anybody else who really don't, because we are all different. Some people really deal with their trauma in many different ways. So, but I also learned how to have empathy to others who don't necessarily, approach, in that kind of way. So, but we need each other. We need to support each other, and we are different. So I'm so grateful who I am, and being able to be a shoulder for somebody else, and a comfort to somebody else. And I feel I'm grateful.
Absolutely. As you
Yeah.
said, we may be different as
Yeah.
as people, as humans, but we need each other and we need to support one another. And it's a beautiful message. So thank you so much, Consolee.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, thank you so much as always. You can find more hmTV podcasts at hmtcli.org or wherever you get your podcasts.